it's been a few weeks now. It was in one of my potential show opener clips. I might not actually have not shared it to the show notes, but I think I found it, and I really need to put my phone on do not disturb. I'm getting notifications popping up, getting in my way on my screen here. Let's see. I'm in my notes. I always apologize to my guests because I pull up I thought I renamed that note. I pull my phone out and start looking at it while they're talking to me, and I have to go, oh, hey, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm checking I mean, technically I am looking at my phone, but I'm just checking my notes. I'm sorry about it. It doesn't seem like it's here. I have another one that is similar, but I thought I had it here. Let's see what this one is. Dr. Malouf. It's another, whatever. Cover your ears, I guess, if you need to. It's another anti-Islam. The video that I was looking for was a guy, he was sharing his he was sort of debating with a guy with a girl, actually. And I think it was, interestingly enough, I think it was in Pioneer Courthouse Square in Portland, my old stomping ground. About what sort of things are said in the Quran and what people that are, devout Muslims should believe about the Quran. And this is it's not the one I was hoping for, but it's a similar take.
You're not doomed yet, but in all of world history, there has never been a civilization that has so opened its doors to another civilization that is openly hostile to it. So this is unprecedented, what's happening. Your ancestors of Europe, and I describe it in my books because I write about history, fought tooth and nail to prevent Islam from entering and conquering Europe, because that was one of the grand plans that went on for century after century. From the east, the Turks were trying to enter Constantinople. They surrounded Vienna in 1683. And before that, the Muslims, I told you, went up into Tours in France in 732, 1,000 years later. This was an actual goal. And now Western Europe is saying, oh, none of that matters. It was a misunderstanding. Come on in. But they haven't changed. That mentality, and when I say they, that's obviously, I'm simplifying. The mentality that I've described is part of Islam. It's an Islamic concept. So the Islamic State, you're told, oh yeah, they have nothing to do with Islam. They've twisted it. No, they haven't. They are a representation of what.
I want to just pause here and iterate or reiterate that I don't think all Muslim people are bad. But I kind of think Islam is. And I feel like a lot of Muslims want to be peaceful and want to be left alone. Maybe not the majority, but a lot of them. And I think it's perfectly acceptable to shrug off some of the doctrines of your religion and practice your faith in the way that you want to practice your faith. But I believe that the jihadists, the Islamo-fascists, the radicals, they take these tenets from the Quran, and I forget the terminology that I'm looking for, but they take these words and use them to justify the violence of radical Islam. And I think that is the way that it is supposed to be.
Islam, the caliphs, the sultanates, the emirates, that's how they operated. The heads of Islam, the grand imams and the muftis said the same exact thing. Okay, so that is what it is. again, it's not my point to arguing, oh, well, this particular migrant wants to conquer you. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's looking for a good life. I understand that. And that's what makes it complicated. But to just open your borders completely to that demographic, which has within it, not all of it, but within it, that kernel of animosity for Christians and so-called infidels, and the imperative to conquer the world in the name of jihad for Allah, which they're the good guys, keep in mind. They never see themselves as the bad guys. This is one of the issues with all conflicts. They're not bad guys. They're good guys in their minds. You're the bad guys because you're infidels, and they're trying to bring the light of Islam to you. So that's another aspect of how moral, or the morality that they feel. They're the good guys, okay, in doing this. Because look at you, Denmark and Europe, you're all dissipated drunks and, profligates, and there's no real. I'm sharing with you their arguments because I read it and I hear it. So they're bringing to you goodness, okay? But before, your ancestors, because I guess they had their own social order and their own goodness, and it was called Christianity, were able to fight it. But I guess in this current void of sort of this atheistic climate, anything goes, and who's to say they're wrong? Maybe they're right, et cetera, et cetera. And now you have what's happening. So it's a very unprecedented experience. A lot of people talk about the Roman Empire, this sort of thing happened, but it didn't, and we can get into that. It was actually, they were still cognizant of trying to maintain their own social, cultural mores, Rome. And it fell to the Goths and the Germanic peoples. And I'm just saying, some people use this analogy, but in this case, this is completely your doing. Not you, but it's Europe's doing. Yeah. Okay, you're bringing a hostile force that's openly hostile. And lo and behold, when I look where Muslims are, I see chaos and violence and criminality and rape and grooming in England. Okay, that's what always happened under Islam. Okay, so is there a hope? I think so. I hope so in time, but it's so bad that it even had to get to this point. It's such an abnegation and betrayal of your own heritage, of these men and women who fought and died to preserve your way of life against an open, hostile force, and now they're being welcomed in, and why not? It's okay. So I guess so. It's a matter of time.
So where's the hope? Excuse me. So where's the hope? You say there is
the hope is to wake up, wake up and see what reality and what I'm talking about, and understand the history and the doctrine of Islam and what Islam is all about.
The hope is that now you know. And I think we're going to see more as time goes on, as the attacks become more numerous, that Islam really is the enemy of the West. Again, not all Muslim people are enemies of the West. But the drive of the caliphate is to destroy the infidel, destroy the West, the great Satan. That is the ultimate objective, in my opinion. And I bring this up. We're going back to the fires. But I bring this up because this person that was caught lighting fires, who was not charged, I think this is a link to a video. He could be Muslim. And I don't know, maybe that's bigoted. But maybe it's also the truth. They found him with a blowtorch. We'll listen to the report.
But they responded, they interviewed this suspect. After the interview and additional investigative steps, looking at some additional evidence that was present, they made the determination.
If you're watching the video,
that
you
there
can
was
see the
not
picture
enough
of him in
probable
handcuffs
cause
there
to
on the
arrest
right.
this person on arson or suspicion of arson, and therefore this person was arrested on a felony probation violation. This investigation is ongoing, however,
that he was trying
I'd
to
like to
start
thank
fires.
those community members that were involved in this and helping us bring this person to our attention, and so we can have an ongoing investigation. The second point I want to talk about, but they responded, they interviewed this suspect. After the
If you want to see the video, it's on Twitter. It's in my show notes. You can also check out the stream that may, the hypothetical stream. As long as I have good captured video, it will go up on YouTube and Rumble. But I don't know that that's an immigrant from Mexico or South America. I know there are reports that there have been plenty of terrorists coming across the borders. And there's even people from, I mean, if you're aware of the horrific things that our government has been doing over the last several decades, probably, I'm sure there's plenty of pissed off people in South America and Mexico that would love to come up here and burn some shit down. I honestly can't say that I blame them. What I can also say is that it ain't our fault, Jack. Or, Juan. We're not the ones that are doing these horrific, corrupt things. And then that just makes me think about elections and voting. And it really makes me wonder how we've put ourselves in this position. Let's look at the story from NBCLosAngeles.com. I don't know how long it's been since it was updated. You know what? We're going to go because the last update was 3 days ago. And it did seem as if the fires were getting better. The winds were improving. But now we have, I'll share the screen with you so we can peep some headlines. Citizen Free Press, one of my favorite news aggregators, even though they're a little too, I don't know, they're a little too something. If you're familiar with them, you probably know what I'm talking about. We viewed this, you can see this headline here, LA City Presser. That's how we first kicked off the show. The winds are picking up again. It's going to get bad. Again. And there's seemingly nothing that they can do. I've seen videos of satellite. Let's see if I can find it. What do you think the odds are? I really do wonder where YouTube and Google's sort of politics line up on this business. Because there's everybody in Hollywood and the Palisades and Altadena and all of the places that are burning literally to the ground. That knows no politics. I'm not one of these people looking at the devastation going, well, that's what you get for being degenerates. That's what you get for voting for Karen Bass, who, by the way, is she's having a bad few days. She was in Ghana and she was mercilessly dragged for being in, out of the country when all of this is going on. And I wonder if we should play that. It's further down. I tried to put my notes in order, in more of a topical order, I guess, than chronological. I will get to Karen Bass, but another thing that has sort of been in the news is Gavin Newsom going out, and I bet I can find some of this business. Gavin Newsom going out and crying about all of the trash that Donald Trump has been talking. And he's framing it in this way that suggests Donald Trump is politicizing. His pinned tweet from 7 hours ago, at CA Governor Gavin Newsom. Goodbye red tape through an executive order. We are making it easier for victims of the SoCal fires to quickly rebuild their homes and lives. We're also extending key price gouging protections to help make rebuilding more affordable. Cool. So nothing will get rebuilt because no one will do the work for less than the work is worth. His next post, I'm deploying 1,000 more California Guard service members to Los Angeles as we battle the unprecedented wildfires in the region. I'll share the screen for you if you're watching the video. The approximately 2,500 total service members mobilized will continue assisting local public safety efforts in communities devastated by the fires. This was as of 2 minutes ago. So this morning, according to the LA County Sheriff, it was only 400. Now that's been more than quadrupled. And thank God. Help these. It's not the fault of the voter. Well, first of all, remember when Gavin Newsom was recalled a few years ago? I think maybe it was 2019. No, 20. I guess we'll find out. But Gavin Newsom was recalled, and he faced off against Larry Elder, that the mainstream press hated. 2022. They called Larry Elder his challenger, the black face of white supremacy. And even though so many people were so dissatisfied with Gavin Newsom's leadership, he was still reelected in the recall vote with like 70%. I don't think the elections in California are legit. I think they cheat, and I think they cheat a lot. And I think that's why we have Gavin Newsom rising through the ranks from what I think he was mayor of San Francisco to lieutenant governor to now. I mean, let's find out. I want to be accurate. To lieutenant governor to now governor of California and presidential hopeful. He was a member of in 1997. He was member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. 2004, he was mayor of San Francisco. 2011, lieutenant governor of California. And in 2019, assumed office as the 40th governor of California. He's a bad person. I don't know any other way to put it. Who abdicates their responsibility in this way? And then turns around and says, oh, it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump is politicizing this terrible tragedy to get some political points. No, well, we all knew. We all knew that you were a pathetic leader. And now something terrible has happened under your pathetic leadership, Gavin Newsom, and you should be held responsible.
They said, we have no water. I said, do you have a drought? No, we don't have a drought. I said, why do you have no water? Because the water isn't allowed to flow down. It's got a natural flow from Canada all the way up north. Water, more water than they could ever use. And in order to protect a tiny little fish, the water up north gets routed into the Pacific Ocean. Millions and millions of gallons of water gets poured. I could have water for all of that land, water for your forests. You know, your forests are dry as a bone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dangerous.
That water could be routed. You know, you could have everything. Oh, not only dangerous, billions of dollars a year they spend on forest fires. And, you know, there's a case with the environment. They're not allowed to rake their forests because you're not allowed to touch it. And all they have to do is clean their forest, meaning rake it up, get rid of the leaves, get rid of, leaves that are sitting there for 5 years. And
We'll
that,
certainly get rid of the dead fall.
and get rid of the trees that are falling
Yeah.
that are
Basic stewardship, basic leadership. It reminds me of, and we're going to get into Karen Bass here in a minute. It reminds me of the city management games, like SimCity from way back when. More recently, the city management game that everybody likes to play is Tropico. Tropico 5, Tropico 6, I think is the newest one. And if you're not careful about the way that you are developing your city, you'll find that you have fires breaking out across your city and you forgot to build your fire departments. And at that point, it's pretty much start over or reload a save, because you're not going to get a fire department built and staffed before the fire ravages your city. So how did Gavin Newsom, this guy that's been in leadership since 97, how did he miss this? How did he forget the most basic principles of leading a city and leading a state, and not make sure that people weren't going to have their homes burned down? Not making sure that people aren't going to have water to drink. Not going to keep people safe in their homes and safe when they're walking down the street. California is completely overrun with crime, homelessness, drugs, and now natural disasters. And I just saw somebody predicting that there's going to be a massive earthquake starting potentially today or in the next 3 days, which was, of course, community noted to say that nobody really has any way of predicting when earthquakes are going to happen. James Woods thought he lost his home and then learned he didn't actually lose his home. And they say these fires are starting because the Santa Ana winds, like hurricane force winds. It's actually pretty crazy. It's because of these winds that I cut this leadership a little bit of slack. But I've been hearing people say, why do they still have the power lines above ground? If they have this problem, which has been a problem for hundreds of years, Santa Ana winds starting fires. I guess they had really bad fires like this back in 93. Could probably pull it up. Why has nothing been done to mitigate the problem? Here we go from a Google quick search. From late October to early November. I can read, I promise. In 1993, wildfires burned over 175,000 acres, destroyed more than 700 homes and structures, and killed 3 people in Southern California. Called the 1993 Laguna Fire. So what did they think was going to happen? Did they think that they had gotten beyond the worst of it? I want to know why the fire hydrants were dry. I want to know why there wasn't any water in the reservoirs. Here's a video from Gavin Newsom. I think it may be actually it may be AI. I mean, not AI, but it may be edited together. I just feel like this first setting that we're looking at, him standing in front of a house as it burns down, I don't think that would be the preferred location for anybody, including CNN, who conducted the interview.
phase. We're in the public safety phase.
I hate to even ask this question, but the president-elect chose to attack you, blame you for this.
One can't even respond to it.
Who else are you gonna blame?
People are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives. Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say. I won't. I stood next to a president of the United States of America today, and I was proud to be with Joe Biden. And he had the backs of every single person in this community. He didn't play politics, didn't try to divide any of us.
Yeah. Donald Trump wants people to know that you're the scum responsible for them losing all of their houses. He wants them to know who not to vote for the next time election's coming around. What about this, Gavin? What about this story that you sent surplus firefighting equipment to Ukraine? From the National Pulse. Headline, California struggling with massive wildfires sent, quote, surplus firefighting equipment to Ukraine. By William Upton. The Los Angeles County Fire Department and several other departments across the United States sent supposedly surplus equipment, including fire engines and ambulances, to Ukraine over the past several years. According to critics, this has left the first responders in the U.S. depleted in the face of natural disasters, including the catastrophic floods in North Carolina and Tennessee, as well as the massive wildfires currently engulfing some of Los Angeles' largest suburbs. In 2022, the Los Angeles County Fire Department announced it was sending surplus hoses, nozzles, turnouts, helmets, body armor, and other associated personal protective equipment to Ukraine to aid first responders amid the Russian invasion. Okay. Let's peep the announcement. From the County of Los Angeles Fire Department website. Headline, Los Angeles County Fire Department joins national effort to help first responders in Ukraine. So this isn't made up. They announced it. They're happy about it. And you know what? That's fine. As a leader, what should you do when you send a bunch of your surplus gear to another country? Do you think maybe you would replenish? I mean, it's been 2 years, almost 3 years. It was March that they made that announcement. But we're not replenishing what we lost. We're not trying to keep the people safe because that's not our top priority. And what is our top priority? Here's a story about the dry fire hydrants. Why were the fire hydrants dry? Nope, I'm clicking the wrong things. Damn it. At Amy Meck reports, fire hydrants reportedly dry amid fires. As fires ravaging Pacific Palisades and surrounding areas, reports are surfacing that fire hydrants in many areas are without water. This is a staggering failure, one that demands immediate answers from Janice Quinones, CEO of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. How is it possible, the author asks, that in fire-prone Los Angeles, hydrants, our first line of defense, are dry when they're needed most? Well, the reason that they were dry is because there was no water in the reservoirs. And because there was no water in the reservoirs, they canceled the inspection of the reservoirs. Now, there is a question to the authenticity of this, just for full disclosure and journalistic integrity. At outraged teen _ Max Bonilla shares this official notice, temporary suspension of annual hydrant testing for fiscal year 2024-2025. issued Tuesday, December 24th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. I wonder how many people were at work at 8:30 a.m. on Christmas Eve. Do you think a lot of them? Do you think most of them? I mean, I think probably a great portion of city workers took Christmas Eve off, and why wouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? The notice reads, in consideration of the department's current operation and fiscal challenges, the annual hydrant testing scheduled for the beginning of this year will be temporarily suspended. This decision reflects the need to prioritize safety, resource allocation, and emergency response capabilities. In light of the following, but the message is cut off. It appears to be pretty legit. It may not be. I have links to other disturbing elements in the show notes, if you'd care to look at them. Straight from government websites backing up these claims. CISA was concerned, that's the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, had plans prepared. I think I can share this with you. I got the PDF. The link is in the show notes, as I mentioned. Prepared for fire to be used as a weapon. Arsons increased 29% from just under 30,000 to just over 40,000 in a year, from 2021 to 2022. And you heard at the beginning of the show the reports of all the people being arrested for starting fires. Actively starting fires. And then we have hydrant inspections canceled. Why were the hydrant inspections canceled? For fiscal reasons? It's my understanding through the research that I've done that hydrant inspection is part of the responsibility of existing fire crews. Existing fire crews. So they've canceled the hydrant inspection. And why? Well, let me just float this out there. If you cancel the fire hydrant inspection, then you don't have any whistleblowers to announce to the press and their families and friends saying, oh, the fire hydrants are dry. There's no water coming out of these fire hydrants. Because then people start asking questions. People say, wait, why are fire hydrants dry? And then they might learn that, oh, it's because the reservoirs are dry. Why are the reservoirs dry? Because they won't let the water flow into California. But they want to tell us all that it's global warming, silly. It's global warming, you conspiracy theorist. And then you want to hear from Karen Bass. What do you have to say, Karen? Tell me. Explain yourself.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of
She's standing there on camera, staring off into space.
dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
And it appears this is right as she's landed. She appears to be at an airport. She's ignoring the journalist. Yeah, they're literally on the jetway. She's ignoring the journalist and now quickly hustling off the jetway to no doubt surround herself with people telling her, all right, look, if you want my opinion on what's happening here, which I think you do because you're listening to this show, I think we're seeing another attack on the American people, and I think it's being enabled by California leadership, if not encouraged, if not facilitated by the same California leadership. Remember when Gavin Newsom had Xi up to San Francisco? Cleaned it up all nice and beautiful. Got rid of the homeless, got rid of the feces, got rid of the garbage. Made it all nice for the leader of the communist world. I don't know, Putin might take issue with me calling Xi the leader of the communist world. Not that I care. And then as soon as that visit was over, we're back to squalor in California, in San Francisco, in one of the most beautiful cities in the United States. It's not a conspiracy that the reservoirs were dry. It's not a conspiracy that the fire hydrants were not inspected. It's not a conspiracy that 30 people, as of this morning, had been arrested for starting fires. And that's what they're willing to admit. Actively starting fires. Because you don't get arrested for accidentally catching something on fire. I mean, maybe you do. That's not really fair. Do you think what the hard-nosed law enforcement of Los Angeles and California are throwing people away for letting their campfires get out of control? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe if they're straight white men. We know how much those guys are hated in California. It's all shrugging shoulders and pointing fingers in California. And now people have to try to rebuild their homes. And Adam Carolla's got big thoughts on how that goes. This clip has been making the rounds. You've probably heard it before, but I don't care. I love Adam Carolla, and I'm going to play this damn clip because Adam Carolla is like my godfather in terms of my passion for radio and broadcasting and now podcasting. And I will always celebrate Adam Carolla and share him with you.
The guys who lost their $20 million homes on the ocean side of PCH will be knee deep in the permit process. They will be trying to pull permits when the guys in the Winnebagos will have been back for months before those guys ever get a permit. As a matter of fact, good fucking luck, because here's the deal. Alan Hamill and Suzanne Summers moved because they could not get a permit to rebuild their home of 40 years on the ocean on PCH, right? So here's what's going to happen. Let me just give you guys a little primer of what's going to happen. You know how Bill Maher seems real conservative now when he's like arguing with Jane Fonda about regulations, too many regulations, like strangling everything. Because remember, when Bill Maher tried to put solar in his house in Beverly Hills, that's when he turned against the government, because he saw what the government and the overreach of government and overregulation does. He got strangled. It took him 3 years to build a solar shack. He had a whole countdown on his show, you know, day 1,000 since I've got my permit for my solar. He turned. Okay. The people who live in Malibu, who live in Santa Monica, who live in the Palisades, those are some of the most progressive blue voters in the world, or in the United States. They are a bastion of blue. So what those guys did is, all the people in the Palisades, I checked it out. It's about 80% blue, 80% progressive, 80% Democrat. Now, these pussies are all sitting around crying about Karen Bass water pressure. How come the forest wasn't cleared of all the brush? What's happening with the infrastructure? You guys all voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. You all voted for Gavin Newsom. And now you fucking get what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, well, now you're thinking about something else. Now you want to know what's going on. What's going on around here? You didn't give a shit about what was going on when other people's houses were on fire, but now you care. So here's what's going to happen. All these people who were deep blue Democrats are now going to have to pull a permit to rebuild. And they're going to get the 28-year-old bitch from the Coastal Commission telling them to go fuck off. And then they're going to vote for Trump or whoever's Trumpian next. You see, they're going to get turned. They're going to get turned hard because, as I've always said, live in the rent control apartment in Santa Monica, fine, good. We know how you vote. Go deal with the city. Try to pull a permit. These are going to be thousands of homes, super wealthy people, and these people don't want to live in Van Nuys. They like it where they are. They love Malibu. They love the Palisades. They love Santa Monica. There's going to be a whole bunch of rich people, and they're going to go, I'm rebuilding, and I want to rebuild as fast as I can. And between the part where they go in to planning commission and plan check and initially and try to pull a permit to the time the first load of lumber, the first load of 2x4s is dropped off on their lot where their house formerly stood, it's going to be 3 years and 1,000 permits and 1,000 arguments and 1,000 discussions with the Coastal Commission, not to mention little tidbits that they didn't think about, like Carson Daly. You want a swimming pool? Yep. Got to be double hulled. Really? Yeah. Well, why? Well, what if water leaches out and gets into the groundwater table? Carson Daly had to build a swimming pool like a modern day oil tanker. Had to put like a double hulled. That's all right. It'll just cost $500,000 for a swimming pool. Like that. They're going to be, when they start getting the regulation, they're going to go nuts. And when they start running into the bureaucracy and the red tape, they're going to start going nuts, and they're going to vote for Rick Caruso next time because they want to get. That's all Trump says is we're going to pull back the regulations. We're going to free people up. They're going to find out. They're going to get bit by their own snake. They're going to convert. I am telling you, these are the bluest people on the planet, and they're going to be fucking ripshit pissed when the city and the Coastal Commission tell them to fuck off. And by the way, I don't think the Coastal Commission is going to okay anyone rebuilding any of their houses on the coast because they say they're in the business of protecting the coast. They're in the business of getting you to leave. They
would love to stick it to the rich people. Let's be honest. They hate rich whitey. And you know who just lost everything? Everything. Well, maybe not everything. Paris Hilton was reported to have lost one of her vacation homes in the Palisades. The poor dear. The grief is real. The loss is real. It isn't just the rich and famous that lost their homes. Some people lived in that area that had everything tied up in that property and those possessions. And now it's gone. And I don't know if the people in charge are gleeful. I don't know if the people in charge understand the implications of what's about to happen. The fire chief of Los Angeles County sent a letter. Elon Musk shared it or retweeted it. To Board of Fire Commissioners from Kristen M. Crowley, fire chief, and she initialed it. Summary. The Los Angeles City Fire Department is facing unprecedented operational challenges. This was sent December 17th, 2024. Due to the elimination of critical civilian positions and a $7 million reduction in overtime variable staffing hours. These budgetary reductions have adversely affected the department's ability to maintain core operations, such as technology and communication infrastructure, payroll processing, training, fire prevention, and community education. In addition to these impacts, the reduction in V hours, that's that variable overtime, etc., has severely limited the department's capacity to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires, earthquakes, hazardous material incidents, and large public events. Specialized programs and sources such as air operations, tactical EMS units, disaster response, and community emergency response teams, which rely heavily on V hours, are now at risk of reduced effectiveness. This report provides an in-depth analysis of these cascading impacts, underscoring the critical need for resource restoration to ensure operational readiness, firefighter safety, and the delivery of high-quality public service. Then this fire chief, she went out and blamed the Los Angeles leadership. And I have this video from Fox.
Period. Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city? It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community. Did they fail you? That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs. Did they fail you? Yes. Chief Kristen Crowley, I believe the anchors wanted to ask a question.
Yes,
had some comments.
We do, Gigi. If you could please ask her regarding the Times article that came out that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed to repairs and it was empty. 117 million gallons of water could have been used in this fight.
The question is about the Santa Ynez Reservoir being empty. There's been a lot of questions about that.
Sure. So my stance on this is when a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped. That's my position on this. So if there's no water, I don't know how the water gets to the hydrants. Please defer that to DWP or whomever controls that part. But I can tell you the resiliency of our firefighters, if there's no water, they're going to go find water. They're going to figure out a way to do the best they can with what they've got in a very dynamic situation.
And what they've got and what they had was severely diminished because Karen Bass cut their budget by $17.5 million. And Karen Bass is a communist. And I don't know that she was legitimately elected. How could you? How could you know that someone is a communist before you vote for them? And how could you know? I mean, because the media is not going to tell you. The media is controlled by corporations and foreign interests. They're not going to tell you this person is dangerous to your way of life in Los Angeles. We need a rapid recall process. But first, we need secure elections. When someone is so incompetent or deliberate, like Alex Jones is getting real mad that people, Donald Trump included, are calling this incompetence. And I personally have a problem considering it to be incompetence because the smoking gun is empty reservoirs, dry fire hydrants, canceled fire hydrant inspection. Because if you know that your fire hydrants aren't going to produce water when they go to inspect and clean them, it's going to create a domino effect. And people are going to be mad. People are going to know that you had completely abdicated your responsibility to keep them safe. And the voters need to be able to immediately remove and replace the people that have completely abdicated their responsibilities. I mean, she had done this. I mean, now doesn't it look like her trip to Ghana was to avoid the fallout? To look away while the terrorists and the enemies of this country burned her city down? They said, we put you in office, now you're going to do what we say. I don't know. Maybe I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. To wrap up the show and support my arguments, I offer you this video about the history of Karen Bass.
November 7, 1983. Remember this date, but first, let me introduce you to Karen Bass. Back in the 1970s, community activist Karen Bass went on at least 15 trips to Cuba, many with a group known as the Venceremos Brigade, a Marxist group started by the Castro regime to subvert American interests, weaken democracies, and spread communism around the world. Founded in 1969, the Venceremos Brigade organized trips to Cuba every year for half a century. They attracted the most radicalized and delusional segments of the American left, including overtly Maoist and pro-Soviet communist groups. In fact, a Los Angeles police investigator who infiltrated the group testified to Congress saying that to be a member of the brigade, you had to be confirmed as a Marxist-Leninist, as a brigadista, and then moving up the ranks to organizer for the Venceremos Brigade. Karen Bass visited Cuba every 6 months. Their mission? To radicalize young, impressionable American leftists in terrorist tactics and guerrilla warfare. Members of the Venceremos Brigade were even taught how to make bombs.
Jesus Christ.
Karen Bass admits on her many pilgrimages to Cuba, she went to see Fidel Castro speak several times, even calling him charismatic. And upon his death, praised him, saying, "The passing of Commandant en Jefe is a great loss to the people of Cuba, even though the people of Cuba see him as a dictator who impoverished their island." Another group, the M19, took its belief in revolutionary anti-imperialism to extremes, violent extremes. The M19 was the first and only women-created and women-led domestic terrorist group. Since their founding in 1978, M19's tactics escalated from robbing armored trucks and abetting prison breaks to building their own explosives and carrying out terrorist bombings. From 1983 to 1984, M19 bombed an FBI office, the Israel Aircraft Industries building, the South African consulate in New York, DC's Fort McNair, and Navy Yard, which they bombed twice. But that wasn't enough for them. On the night of November 7, 1983, the M19 called the US Capitol switchboard and warned them to evacuate the building. Minutes later, the M19 bombed the north wing of the US Capitol. November 7, 2023 marks 40 years since the M19's bombing of the US Capitol. Members of the M19, like Susan Rosenberg, traveled to Cuba with and were radicalized by the Venceremos Brigade. The South Los Angeles Venceremos Brigade was led by Karen Bass, who is now mayor of Los Angeles.
Oops. Why can't we rely on the mainstream media to tell us about that? Now is it all coming together? Credit to Errol Weber, at Errol Weber. I'm going to share the screen of his Twitter feed for you. Documentary film producer, director of photography, cinematographer of the Oscar-winning Music by Prudence and Sundance-winning American Promise. 9 hours ago, posted to X. Anybody feel that tremor in the Bay Area? Was there a tremor in the Bay Area? Magnitude 3.5 at 8:49 a.m. Does that mean that the earthquake prediction was correct? rattle felt in Oakland, says the headline from the San Francisco Chronicle. I'm sounding way too excited about it for my own for my own conscience. I just feel like, I mean, I mentioned earlier in the show that this guy was predicting there was going to be an earthquake that then got community noted saying we can't predict earthquakes. And now 9 hours ago, he said, I believe it, I'm just trying to pull it from memory, that the prediction was an earthquake between the 12th and the 15th. Or maybe it might have even been the 11th to the 15th. We're not there yet. I don't believe the people of California honestly elected Karen Bass. I don't believe they honestly elected Gavin Newsom. I don't believe that the elections in California have been honest, probably since they switched to universal mail-in voting. And that's probably the case for every state that has universal mail-in voting, and that's probably why we have largely communist and socialistic policies. And maybe I covered this in earlier episodes around the election, around the time of the election. And maybe this isn't true, but if I remember correctly, somebody was pointing out that the only states that Kamala Harris won in the November 2024 election were the states that had universal mail-in voting, of which there were many more in 2020, because states, secretaries of states, unilaterally changed the rules to allow for no excuse mail-in voting for the 2020 presidential election. And that sure would explain how Joe Biden got 81 million votes to Kamala Harris's, I'm pulling it up now, 75 million votes. And I think it looks like Donald Trump got 1 million to 2 million more votes. So in 2024, Kamala Harris got, I'll share the screen for you, for those of you viewing the video, which I've been told is not streaming anywhere. Thanks, Riverside. But you know what? Riverside's on my shit list, admittedly, but for the same products through another service, I would be paying probably 4 times more than I am for Riverside. So I'm going to try to stick it out with these guys. Anyway, you can see here now on the screen, 75 million votes for Kamala Harris, 77 million votes for Donald Trump. Now let's peep 2020. $81 million votes for Joe Biden, 74 million votes for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump got 1,100,000 more votes in 2024 than he did in 2020. Now let's just roll back to 2016. If you're still watching and or listening, thank you very much for supporting the show. From 270 to win.com. Now, and this is what stirred a lot of controversy about the 2016 the 2016 election. Donald Trump got 62 million votes, almost 63 million, for 304 electoral votes, smashing Hillary Clinton's 227 electoral votes. But Hillary Clinton got 65 million, almost 66 million, almost 4 million votes more than Donald Trump did. Or excuse me, 3 million, almost 3 million more votes. Which opened the door for them to all say, oh, Russian collusion and, compromised elections. However, nothing was done to safeguard our elections against this supposed Russian influence, because they would love to have people to just be able to tell people, oh, this is because of foreign influence. And the people that are in charge of your government are really criminals. And that's what we're looking at. And this is what has crushed my faith in elections. And rightfully so, I believe. And when you can't trust your elections, you start to question the decisions of the people in power. And when the people in power are not doing anything to restore your faith in elections, then we have conspiracy theories that run wild and go undebunked. They go bunked. And that's one that I really hope day one of Donald Trump's second term, we see some big changes, some executive orders about the way we're allowed to conduct our elections, because we can't move forward as a country. This is going to be a very tense next 4 years, because the people that are anti-Trump are going to be very skeptical, and rightfully so, of the integrity of this election. And we have to fix that. We have to fix that, and we have to fix our justice system, because the justice system really represents truth. And if you have a corrupt justice system, you have no grasp of the truth. Because justice is supposed to expose the truth. And now justice only exposes a narrative. Oh, it worked. I didn't have to fiddle or anything. This isn't the music I wanted, though. Thank you guys for hanging out and checking out the podcast. Please share and subscribe to the show. Follow me on Twitter at EarthVox. Excuse me, X. Follow me on X at EarthVox. I'm also on YouTube. I'm on Twitch. I'm scrambling to turn this down because it seems a little bit loud. There we go. That feels better. I'll be able to clean it all up, I'm sure, in post, because I don't think this stream is actually going out anywhere, unfortunately. It will be on Twitch. It will be on YouTube. It will be on Rumble. The audio version of the podcast will be on Apple, Spotify, all the other podcast platforms. Please send me an email. Interact with me, TheRealEarthVox at protonmail.com. I will invite you to the Discord server. The community is growing over there. I would invite you to visit vox404.com, but I don't know how long that website will be up, because it was operated by my dearly departed co-host, who is alive and well, it seems. Thank goodness. That'll be the next thing to work on. If you can offer any help there, please reach out to me. I am just barely hanging on with the technological advancements as they come. But I thank you again for listening to the podcast. I thank you tremendously for your support. Please tune in next week. I'm sure I'll have all the streaming and everything figured out. And we're going to keep it going, baby. I'll talk to you soon.